All right, we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Rancho Live show. My name is Orlin. I'm part of the SUSA team, and I'm also CNCF ambassador. And have a great guest today, Tyler Thomas, also a CNCF ambassador. So when I announced this, I call it like two ambassadors chatting kind of thing, because for the last few times that we do that, it's mostly ambassadors that I'm aiming for. So yeah, so welcome to the show, Tyler. Can you a little bit introduce yourself?
Yeah, so like Orlin said, I'm Taylor Thomas. I am a longtime CNCF community member. I've been an ambassador for the past year or so, and I work at a company called Cosmonic. It's a startup in the WebAssembly space. If you're interested in WebAssembly, you can come find me at said KubeCon, and I'll chat your head off about it. But not here. Here, we're here to talk about all the stuff you're going to need to know for KubeCon. So, anyway, this
Yep.
is a little bit about me.
Good. Thank you for joining me today. It is when I was setting up this session, I wanted to have someone, first of all, super into the ecosystem of CNCF and the whole landscape thing, and also to be a local to Salt Lake City, or at least as local as possible, right? Because yeah, not always you can find this two in one person. So thank you for once again, thank you for joining me on this one. So all right, so we have some kind of agenda for today, but it's like since it's gonna be super uh, light chat, is not technical one. Um, I want to chat how you get in. You're local, right? I'm gonna fly from Europe. It's a long trip for me. I'm gonna fly from Sofia. I'm located in Sofia. I'm gonna fly to Munich, and then I'm gonna fly to San Francisco, and then we're gonna take an RV and we're gonna do a trip. That's my treat for traveling 24 5 hours from Europe to the US. Some for me, but most probably that's not the case for everyone. And you as a local, maybe you can give some guides for the folks that haven't figured out the trip yet. What's the
Uh,
easiest way to get to Salt Lake City?
Yeah, so the easiest way is like just talking pure logistics. Salt Lake is kind of the Salt Lake Airport is kind of owned by Delta. There are other airlines there, but your easiest flights are going to be in on Delta or Delta affiliates like KLM and Air France and those kinds of airline partners. But yeah, the Salt Lake Airport is actually pretty easy to get into. It's one of the newest airports in the country. It just reopened during the pandemic. They completely trashed the old one and built a new one in its place. So it's not super. If you're used to like super large airports, it's not as big as that, but it is a fairly large airport. Lots of gates, like I said, the Delta flights are easiest, but it's also not very far from downtown. So getting in here, you don't even have to plan it. I mean, I would plan it, but you can get in and take the what's called the tracks, which is our light rail that goes straight from the airport to downtown. In about, I think it's about 10 or 15 minutes. It's not very far from the downtown area. Obviously, you can also rent a car or take an Uber. But that's one of the nice things about the Salt Lake area is you're not traveling very far from downtown to the airport at any given time.
Does that tracks that you said is like a train or tram?
Yeah,
I know
light
you have
rail, like a
trams,
light
right?
rail train. Yeah, it's more like a tram style thing, but it's light rail.
Mhm.
So that runs actually all through the Salt Lake Valley. You'll hear that term a lot when you come here. Utah's a bunch of valleys connected to
Mhm.
each other, and so is the Salt Lake Valley, and all through the Salt Lake Valley, you have a bunch of these tracks rails, as well as one that goes even further south called Front Runner. Highly doubt anyone will take that one, but tracks is the light rail, and it goes all through downtown. And in the downtown area itself, there's about 4 or 5 stops. That's always a free ride zone. So it's pretty easy to get from somewhere like where we're going to be at the Salt Palace to a little bit further down south where some other restaurants are at, if you don't want to walk it. So
Mhm.
that's kind of, it's the same thing that will go all the way out to the airport as well, and it's pretty easy to navigate. It's not pretty crazy. There's one way to get there. So if you're taking the public transportation, that's the way to go.
Nice. And talking about public transport, for the folks who are going to stay a long time, like for the full week or maybe more, is there maybe I catch you off guard with this one, but is there like how easy is to get the, for example, a week pass or something? Is that an option, or
Yeah,
you
it's
pay in
pretty.
the tracks vehicle or?
Yeah, I don't know exactly all the pass. I know they have a bunch of different passes. Obviously, because I live here and it's a
Yeah.
it's a pretty wide area. Um, just like many areas over here in the western part of the United States. Pretty much anyone who lives here has a car. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't take the public transportation too much. But when I have, it's generally there. You have the fare booths at the stations that you can do. You also have it online where you can see all the different passes. And it's just the name of the it's UTA, Utah Transit Authority. And so they have all the things on their site that you can take a look at. You can buy different passes if you're going to be here for a while. So if you're going to be exploring downtown, you'll need that. If you're going to be going out and doing other things, because Utah is known for its outdoors, if you're going to be doing that, I highly recommend renting a car. It's just going to be easier to get around that way and give you a lot more flexibility. Um, the exception being if you're going to some of the ski resorts. The ski resorts don't generally open till later November, but you might be going up to like do mountain biking or other things. And in that case, there's generally shuttles or things you can reserve that'll get you up to those resorts and back down. But otherwise, it's probably good to have a car.
Yeah. You mentioned ski resorts and like winter resorts in general. Today I was having chat with my team, and our manager Robert mentioned that actually Salt Lake City is quite high above the sea level. So what kind of weather uh is like in this time of the year? Because over here we're we're around 700 meters, which is like give me a sec, I'm not prepared for this one, but um feet. So that's what was that, 300 foot or something. It's we're relatively high below above the sea level, but Salt Lake City is even higher. So I suppose there will be like, and it's like next to the mountain where Olympics were before, and they will be in the future. So I expect some more cold weather than what I have over here. Is that true, or?
It really depends. So you're right. We're about double the altitude where you're at. We're 1,500 meters, so around 5,000
Mm.
feet. It varies by a couple hundred meters depending on where you're at. But yeah, we're roughly around 1,500 meters up, where we're at here in Salt Lake area. And so you will have it. I always forget, and then I have friends come, even from like I'll have like friends from California come, and then they're walking upstairs and they're really fit and they're quite athletic and they're like dying from just it's high enough that you'll have a little bit if you're moving fast or doing something. So if you're a runner, just be prepped that you might run out of air a little bit earlier. That doesn't mean you're out of shape. It just means you're not used to the altitude. So keep that in mind. But then also the weather itself is variable. When Orland and I were first talking about this, I was telling him the problem with Utah is we're a high desert, and so throughout the whole year, our temperature ranges from 0 degrees Fahrenheit to 110 Fahrenheit. So we're talking like negative 20 to 41, 42 Celsius, and so we get this massive range of temperatures. And in November, it's completely up for grabs. Like right now, we just went through like a brief cold spell. It wasn't super cold; it was maybe 12 degrees, 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, and now we're sitting at around 18, so 18 to 20 ish, and then we're diving back down. But generally, around that time, we start to get a storm. So you're either going to have suddenly mild weather, or you're going to be in the middle of a snowstorm. But those snowstorms generally don't stick too much. If you're really lucky, I know there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it's just right before the ski season." So if you're really lucky, there might be enough snow to open up the resorts, but it's highly unlikely. It just depends though on because sometimes we do just get a storm that comes in and dumps 20 feet of snow in the mountains for just like in a day. So that's the kind of thing that can happen here. So just be prepped for anything from cold. It is very dry here. If you have sensitive skin, like you will dry out super fast. So just be prepared for that because it is a desert.
So I have that from open source summit. It was in Austin few years ago. So stay hydrated. That's it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So your general advice is like be prepared for a cold weather most of the time. Good. So we spoke about navigating the city. Or do you want to share some more about the city, like which areas? Because we are super central with the Salt Palace, and I suppose many of the people will rent some hotels around it. Is there like parts that people should go and parts of the city that people should stay away?
It's actually really safe here in Salt Lake City. The only like dangerous area, and I use that very loosely, is in the west part of the city. And actually, one of the restaurants I'm going to recommend too is right on the border of some of those areas. But like compared to many other major cities, it's not really that sketchy over there. You're going to be fine pretty much wherever you go. But if you go further west on foot, I would just be a little bit more aware, especially at night. But like I said, it is that I, I've been to a lot of other cities, you know, for all the different KubeCons. There's a lot of other cities that there were areas where you're like, no, don't go there. There's not a ton of those. There's a few pockets here and there, but they're far enough away that you're probably not going to go into them.
Nice.
If you're out on your own, there's a place out by there's a freeway called I-215, and then State Street, which is another major street. Down there, there can be some areas where there's a little, or not I-215, there's a little bit higher. Anyway, I'll have to remember. It might be I-80. But there's an area down there. Once again, I don't think people are going to go down there. So there, I wouldn't be too worried. It's a very safe city. It's fun to walk around. It's not there's not as many skyscrapers and big things as other cities, but you get a lot of good views of the mountains. So yeah, nothing too scary around there. Plenty of stuff to go like walk around in terms of restaurants, and then also outdoors things, which we'll get into, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's jump to the fun part, right? And we can leave. Do you want to leave like the actual KubeCon stuff for the end, or
however you want to do it? I'm just here to help.
I'm just curious what people wants to hear first, like getting prepped for KubeCon, uh, or like the city, because like I mean, for many folks, that travel is not only about the KubeCon and the content and meeting people, but it's also like the whole experience of going somewhere new, food, music. For example, for me, on the last KubeCon in NA, it was in Chicago. So I was in heaven in terms of music. Like there was like my hotel was next to the Buddy Guy Blues Bar. So imagine that every night I was like on the way back, I was passing by the bar for a beer just to listen to some music, and so it was fantastic. So so for me, it's not only the KubeCon and the community, but it's more the whole experience around it. All right. Okay. Let's talk about KubeCon first. You're old timer KubeCon. You said your first KubeCon was like when 2017 or something.
2016 in
2016.
Seattle. Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
very. It's been a while at this point.
Yeah, my first KubeCon was 2017, 2018. I don't know, somewhere in Europe. So what? Yeah, when people say KubeCon, everybody's super excited. But if it's your first KubeCon, you're not aware what you're getting into. That's my personal opinion. It's not a regular conference. It's more of a madness kind of setup conference, with all the stuff that are happening at the same time, and all the people that are there, and then you're trying to meet everyone, and you're trying to chat with everyone. So any recommendation how you can set up your visit at KubeCon?
Yeah, so this is a classic question you get asked when you've been to KubeCon a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm remembering because 2016 was the time when I could go to almost every talk. Like that, it was still that kind of size. There was about 1,000 people, or just over 1,000 people at that time. And nowadays, you're getting 10,000 people or more. So one of the big things is it's nice. It's one of those things that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. Is because the community has grown so much, we have so many different tracks and opportunities. So the first thing you're going to want to do is look on the schedule on the main KubeCon site, and you can see the main tracks, like the main categories of things. And so when it's best to kind of, if you're a first timer, if you're not a first timer, you know a little bit more about like how to like kind of do it on the fly, depending on what you're hearing and what you're seeing, and then talking to people, because you'll run into people who are speaking. They'll be like, come to my talk, and be like, that actually sounds really interesting. But for the first timer, just to kind of not get too worried about things, is look at those topics, decide which of the tracks are most interesting to you. That doesn't mean you're not going to go to any of the other stuff. It just helps you kind of organize. And then you can use the build your own schedule thing inside of the Sketch tool that the CNCF uses. And you can go through each of those different categories and say, okay, I'd like to go to this. I'd like to go to this. But the other thing I'd also encourage is don't fully book up your schedule. If this is your first time going, leave time for what we all know as the hallway track. because that's part of the fun of being here is you get to get in random conversations, find people you know. It's the classic thing where I always joke because I grew up in the '90s, and at least over here in the U.S., people were like, "Don't talk to strangers on the internet," and like it was all that kind of stuff. And I always laugh because like nowadays, like I go to a conference where I meet all the strangers I know on the internet while calling a stranger to come pick me up in their car and bring me to the venue. And so, um, yeah, that's it's just so funny to me. But like, there's so many times, even now that I've started to get to know more of the people who I've worked with in this community for a long time in person, I still go, "Oh, you're so and so," and name them by their GitHub handle. So it's perfectly fine to leave that space in there because we all go to collect swag, we all go to do that, but you're going to get into some really interesting conversations with people on the booth floor, on in the hallway, after talks. That's the kind of thing you want to build in some space for. So those are kind of my things. So step one, topics. Step two, fill it up with those things from those topics, and step three, leave yourself time. That's like my number one set of advice for the beginners who may have not come to KubeCon before.
Great stuff. Can I add some? Like, my first few KubeCons, I felt exhausted somewhere like in the middle of the day, especially if you run between sessions and if you want to meet someone like maintainers or I don't know, random people from the internet, as you said. I find out that it's great if you set aside some downtimes for you. Like there will be a plenty of area around the venue where you can just sit and be by yourself just for 5 minutes, just to refresh. Have a coffee by just you, so you can refresh because I'm super like social person. My wife hates that in me, in her guts, but that's me, right? I love talking to as many people as I can because that's my chance. That's the reason why I go to KubeCon, to meet the people that are actually just somewhere in Slack or someone over Zoom. um for me, I stopped going to sessions, I don't know, a long time ago in KubeCon because I don't have the time because of meeting people, right? But that like exhausts my um i- in some way energizes me because like I'm meeting these people and finally I can talk with them. I can, I don't know, smile with them and have a laugh. But on the other hand, that's like it's emotional exhaustion. So I need some time to refresh a little bit. So at least I find it super useful to have like, don't overdo it, and have sometimes to refresh a little bit. Otherwise, you'll be exhausted. First of all, for the parties in the evening. Second, yeah, the next day is gonna be super hard for you if you overburn and then have a great party, and then the next day is gonna be what am I? So yeah, and
We're not the best examples of that. Or Orlin and I should probably disclaim that you shouldn't do what we do, which is basically like burn hard all day if this is your first time, because as CNCF ambassadors, we have duties with trying generally with other things. Like I help with the WASM working group and tag runtime, so I'm going to be helping them with things. I'm going to be at my own company's booth. Orlin has a similar problem, so like you don't have to go. But I think that's really good advice because you can burn yourself out if especially if this is your first very large conference. Like build in some time. I think that's a really good point.
yeah, and I had another one. Yeah, about logistics. I want to point out. Normally, the events are happening in venues which are huge. So if you plan to, for me, that's my rule number one, and that's I apply that for any conference that I go. I try to stick to one stream because it's easier logistically. For example, if I want to switch talks to different stream and it's in the other side of the venue, and it can take like 15-20 minutes walking. You should hit the bathroom or you meet someone on the way, and that pumps time to get on the other side. And the worst thing that can happen when you on the other side, the room is full. That's what happens at KubeCon most of the time, or at FOSDEM. Like I don't know if you have been at FOSDEM, but it's crazy. Like you queue for 25 minutes and then the room is still full. So you have to plan that. Also, my advice is always balance out which sessions you want to really see in person and which you can easily watch online later on. So you don't care if you miss the opportunity to ask questions at the end, that's fine. So you can leave that for later on. But if you really want to meet the person who is like talking, like for example, maintainers track, and you're super into the project and you want to jump in and join the community and start working with them, prioritize that talk over the others, because that's your golden chance to meet the people and yeah, be around them and get like from the source. All right. Yeah, we have a point over here to collect your pass the day before. So if you're arriving earlier, I suppose most of us will be like few days before that, like Cloud Native rejects, some collocates, wherever, like Rancher Day or Wasm. Use the time to go and pick up your badge on the day before, instead of like queuing for the badge on the Monday on the first day before keynotes. You will be definitely late for keynotes. That's all it happens.
Yeah, they also have badge. Generally, in the past few years, they've also had badge pickup points at some of the close by hotels that are some of the conference hotels. So there's multiple ways to get it, and we definitely highly recommend doing that before, because
Yep.
otherwise you will be stuck in a line waiting to get your badge printed out in the first morning on Wednesday. So highly recommend doing this in some way with one of the different options they give you to get your badge.
Yeah. Right. What are your favorite tracks? I have my favorite tracks. What are your favorite tracks, and what do you normally, if you want to attend something? I know that's a very stretched question, but
It's a good one. I mean, I also don't have a lot of time to attend many of the talks, just because I am doing so much of the other things. But I do try to go to um, the way I kind of filter is there's a couple different types. Some of the like interesting types you might not know about, because there's the main like there's the different actually say like kinds of tracks and things they have available. Like they're topic based. You have like AI ones, cloud native experience, which is like maintaining a project. You have things like emerging and advanced technologies, but then you also have these maintainer birds of a feather, and then there's also the keynotes, which most people know about. But the maintainer tracks and bird of a feather are really interesting if you are in the space where you want to contribute to or understand deeply a project, because you get to have some hands-on time with maintainers. And as someone who's been a CNCF project maintainer for a long time, I used to be a Helm core maintainer. I maintain Wasm Cloud, which is another CNCF project. I'm involved with a couple others. It like as a maintainer, it was really nice to get people from the community who I never would have heard from in any other venue, because they were there at KubeCon. So those are always really interesting tracks. So I kind of do a split between the ones I'm really interested in, which right now is generally around like the WebAssembly and platform engineering areas. For me personally, for everyone, it's going to be different. And then I go and I look at those other things. There's also the Contrib Fest, which is really, really awesome. You get to have it's a very interactive workshop slash it's really to help you start getting like contributing things to a project or to the ecosystem around a project. So, for example, if it was open telemetry, you'll be building things to like integrate in with it, or other extensions. It just kind of depends on how they guide it. And you're there with a bunch of maintainers and people from the project. We're doing one with Wasm Cloud this year, building like Wasm components. And you have things like backstage that are going on. You have so many different, like, I'm trying to do it from memory. I don't have it up in front of me, but like there's a whole bunch of them that are going on there. So those are the different tracks that I look for. It's just kind of my favorites. And then the things where I get to be like hands-on with people who I interact with in the community, or who are using stuff I'm building.
We forgot to mention something. The Project Pavilion area is something that I think everybody should hit at some point, maybe a few times during KubeCon. So spare us some time for that. That's the place where you can see all primarily like huge portion of the projects who are represented there, and you can see the maintainers or the people contributing to the projects, so you can speak with the actual people who are merging your PRs, or they're reviewing your issues and giving you advices on Slack or GitHub. So for me, that's one of the best area to hang around. Actually, this KubeCon, you see me with George Castro in that area quite a lot because I love what George did for the last KubeCon, like that dedicated area where it's not only for the projects and it was centralized into the venue, and also was a zone where people can just chat. It was not about only projects, right? And it's like all the other marketing and big company stuff was a little bit aside, and that was like pure open source project area with some coffee shops around. So you can just grab a coffee and chat with someone for a few minutes, just relax and learn something new. For me, that's that's one of the best areas to hang around during the conference. But that's me again.
Well, yeah,
uh,
I think we're both biased there because I
yes,
agree because we're both going to be there quite a bit with the project booths, but it really is a great time to, and you do have to come back multiple times because it rotates. There's
yep.
not enough space for every single project to be there full time, nor the time in the day really, and so they rotate. So you'll go back and you'll see different people at each booth and have time to talk to them. So it's definitely worth taking some time on each day to go back there and visit and just either learn about projects you might not know about or go talk to the maintainers of projects you're using.
Or if you're like a sticker junkie like me, you can. That's your place. So
There's lots of stickers there.
yeah, you have that wall with all the little boxes with all the project stickers over there, so you can find all the stickers that you want. So yeah, talking about stickers and collecting stuff, what do you think about the swag at KubeCon?
We were joking about this when we were talking over what we wanted to go over for people, and the kind of tongue in cheek but also really true advice is bring an extra suitcase, like a collapsible suitcase, for that. Uh, that's part of the fun of this. There's all sorts of random swag. You have giveaways that a lot of the big companies do, but then you also have stuff like T-shirts and miniature Lego sets and socks and all this stuff. I mean, at a bare minimum, you're going to get the conference T-shirt that comes with the being an attendee. So, like at a bare minimum, you're getting that. But like, oftentimes you'll go around and talk to other people, um, and it works out really great because, like, I'll be honest, like sometimes as an engineer, like I go there and I'm like, I don't want to hear from like the marketing pitch about this thing. But oftentimes, not all the time, but most of the time, a lot of people have at least a few of their actual engineers on the booth, if not more, and it results in some really interesting conversations. Even if I haven't personally been interested in a product or whatever that company's working on, I always end up having an interesting conversation 90% of the time. So don't be afraid of doing that. Like, that's how you get the swag anyway, is you talk to them, you let them scan your badge, and then you get your swag. It's just kind of the thing. But yes, be prepared to haul home some swag. It's great if you have kids or friends who like gifts. You'll find some extras to bring back when you're done.
Yeah, my kids are always waiting when I come back. It's like the suitcase, and what do you have for us? It's like they know that I have some junk for them. Like, because let's be honest, not everything that is given away at the conference is great, right? Some is something can be pretty good, like great t-shirts. And there was like a few years ago, some company was giving this um green necklace, but they were like super shiny, like Christmas lights in them. So you flick the switch and they start like shining, and it's just like blinking and everything. My kids love them until they broke them, of course, but it was like super shiny. It was super cheap, but it was so cool for the kids. So I don't regret bringing that. I'm not sure where I brought it from, but I don't regret getting that because I asked for two because I have two kids, so I had to bring two.
Yeah, I have,
So yeah,
and most people understand when you say that too. When they have something funny like that, you're like, "Can I get two? Because I have two at home who need it." They're like, "Yeah, that's fine." And you
yeah,
get fun stuff like this hat right here. I wore it on purpose today
yeah,
because I'm always a hat wearer, but this is one that I got at KubeCon LA, I believe. Someone had already commented in the chat earlier, like, "I
yeah.
had that
That's
hat,
Rob.
guy." It's
Yeah, that's Rob from our team. Actually, he made a comment for "Stay hydrated." That was his comment for today's session. So yeah, so be prepared for a lot of swag. If you're not swag person, I'm sorry for you, but be prepared to if you accept all the swag. A friend of mine, we run the local community here in Bulgaria. Uh, he came back from Barcelona, I believe, with 54 t-shirts. So yeah, people are like enjoying that. If I bring any more t-shirts from any conference, my wife is gonna kick me out because like our wardrobe is only my t-shirts. And the thing is, I don't want to throw them away because they're good t-shirts. They're project t-shirts. So how I can throw away a open source project t-shirt? It's not my thing. So um food and coffee in the conference, it's a topic that people are somehow touchy on that. Any thoughts on this one, or should we skip this one? I have thoughts on this one. If you accept, I'm not sure if we chatted, but I have my experience in the hospitality business. I used to run a restaurant for a while, and making food to 10,000, 12,000 people is not an easy job. Actually, it's almost impossible to prepare timely uh, food for so many people. So people are like, "Oh, conference food, it sucks. It's cold and it's like it's not tasty." Yes, but preparing food for so many people is not easy. So it's great that we have food, and it's not bad actually. At least my opinion is it's not as restaurant quality food, but for 10,000 people, and just to grab something on the fly when you run through the next meeting is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think I very much agree. It's very important to note you're not going to be getting like gourmet quality food here at what's provided at the conference, though. Like Orland said, it's just the nature of the beast. You're making stuff for that many people. You're not gonna have as much time to focus on the quality. Now, with that said, like there has only been maybe 3 times when I have been at KubeCon, I've been like, this is like unpalatable and absolutely disgusting. So your chances are low here, but we'll talk about all the other food scene as well for those who want to go out and grab it, because that's another way to take a break is to go walk to a nearby restaurant, get lunch, and then come back is a good way to take a break and decompress. But sometimes take those calories, people. Your brain's consuming a lot of calories when you're running around and you're talking to a bunch of people. There is one good thing. So the coffee, I mean, the you're not going to get good coffee that they have in the big thermoses there. I mean, it is. I've heard it described many names, which I will not repeat here. But the problem is that that's not the only. I mean, not the problem. The good thing is you're not only limited to that coffee. There are other coffee shops outside the venue, but also many of the sponsored areas and some of the company booths do coffee. Just be aware that during the major breaks, because they have breaks in between. There's generally at least two major breaks per day for people to be able to come to the solutions showcase, the sponsor floor, and that is when it's busiest. But if you're there when it's not, you'll have a little bit shorter of a line, and then they have pretty decent coffee and other options. And many of them have like lots of different options. They'll have things like oat milk available for those who like like some sort of milk in there that's not dairy. They have your standard like cafe con leche type of things. You have all those kind of things available inside. You will just have to wait in line for it. It is generally free. Every once in a while, depending on where it's at, you might have to listen to a pitch from somebody. But you know what? Good coffee, it might be worth it for some people. So just be aware that the food, like if you're on the fly, it will satisfy your needs, and you won't think it's absolutely terrible. But don't go expecting anything super fancy either. That's, I think, the easiest way to summarize it.
yeah, yeah, totally agree with you. And since the last few KubeCons, one of the best coffee was next to the project pavilion area. There was like a stand there. I'm not sure who sponsored that. That's not important, but for this conversation, but that was like the best coffee on the whole floor. And it was also, again, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but it was like the best chance to meet someone from the projects and on the line, and hey, what you doing, and then while you're waiting for your coffee to have a small chat with some, I don't know, maintainer of Prometheus or some other great projects out there. Good. So kind of swing to the best part of our conversation, at least for me. As you know, foodie over here, foodie over there. Tell me about the food scene in Salt Lake City and what we can expect and what to look for, how to navigate that.
Yeah, so there are plenty of food options downtown. There's a couple different categories I look at here. In general, if you're going to be around the state, there is a decent size of decent population of people from Latin America, from all over, from Mexico all the way down to like Argentina and Chile. Um, and so you're going to find a lot of really good food. We have like really good arepas and pupusas. If you haven't heard of those, Google them. They're great. Some of the best pupusas I've ever had in the U.S. are actually just around the corner from my house, which is way further south than you probably go. But like, there's all these kinds of Latin American food places everywhere. Now, in particular, there's a couple restaurants I did want to call out. There is and all of these are. These first two are long walks. If you're, I'm a walker, so I wouldn't mind walking this or a short car ride, a short like Uber over to one of these. There's a restaurant called Ochre. That's a Native American word, I believe. It's Oquirrh, and it has a rotating menu in a very like cozy location. It's an old house, if I remember right, and very, very good food. I've had a good time there. It's been a little while since I've gone, but since I've gone to that's been a good one. There's another one called Arlo that's up on the Capitol Hill area. So the Utah State Capitol is literally up on top of the hill that's right there, and so it's just right over next to that. That is like modern cuisine, very well executed. I found it very enjoyable. Went there earlier this year, and then surprisingly, this one's going to surprise people, I'm sure. Because Utah is landlocked. There's no water touching it. There's the Great Salt Lake, which is very big, but very salty, and there's only brine shrimp in there. So there's not food generally in that lake. And surprisingly, a very good sushi place is a place called Takashi. It's downtown. It's very, very good sushi. I think they fly in their fish. So if you're a sushi fan, highly recommend checking out. You do have to, there's no reservations unless you have a party of 6 or more. So if you're going to do that one, the trick is get together with 6 of your buddies, even if those are buddies you just made friends with at the conference, and then make a reservation. That's another one that's really good. So those are kind of like the fancier options. But then we get into the more, these ones are like some more of my favorites. So there is one that's not too far away. It's on this is the West Side restaurant I was kind of like referring to. You have to go under the freeway to get to it, but it's really not far away either. It's called Red Iguana. Red Iguana is a very well-known Salt Lake staple. It is very, very solid Mexican food, and they have very good moles. If you've never had a mole, you should have a mole there because it's pretty authentic. And they have, I think, 8 different kinds, representing all the different regions and things where mole is made. So that's it's a sauce made of a bunch of different spices and generally chocolate, and it's not sweet. It's a savory thing. It's called mole because the word moler means to crush or to grind. And so you mash it all up into this kind of paste that becomes the mole. And so that's really, really good. And then we also have and you have a couple of these downtown, or at least one. I don't know if there's 2. There's a place called Gourmandise. Its dinner food is decently solid, but its real star is the dessert. They have some very, very good. It's like a French bakery style thing. It's very, very good dessert over here. And then after that, there's a bunch of local chains that I recommend. But I'm going to pause there because there's a lot to unpack there.
I just want to open a bracket. You promised me that you're going to open a PR at Sick Foodies.
I will be attempting to do it soon. Yeah, this is all of us are locked in prep for KubeCon. So if there's any in general, this is where PRs are not coming in. Yes, and I'm going to dump a lot of these here as soon as I can. But those are just some recommendation. There's actually like lots of good restaurants around, like Pig in a Jelly Jar if you're a brunch and breakfast person. And there's a whole bunch through the area. Like Salt Lake has had a lot of new restaurants and things pop up in the past 5 years.
Yeah, for the people online, we're gonna add all that. I hope in the next few days to the Sick Foodies website. That's a site for everybody who is seeing that for first time. It's kind of jokey thing, but we started doing that from Chicago with a bunch of friends. You see the picture on the site. We decided that we're gonna collect this kind of information for all the foodies out there in the community who actually enjoy local food, and not only local but good food where when they go and visit places. So if you like us, open a PR, share your experience. That will be the next chapter. Will be in London, and then Amsterdam and Denver, and so on. All the other cities that we're gonna have KubeCon in the future. I hope. So I'm looking at you to add that, because I was researching some stuff. Um, but still haven't added it. Yeah, sorry for that. But yeah, as you said, preparation for KubeCon. So if you can say in like one thing that people should try when they're in Salt Lake City, like we discussed that, like, but I totally forgot the name, that pork salad kind of thing.
Yes, that was the one I was leaving. So there's two things I'd highly recommend you try that you're going to have a hard time finding if you're anywhere east of the Rockies in the U.S. or across the Pacific Ocean, obviously the other direction. There are two restaurants that basically I think started together. It was one of those, like, there's an apocryphal legend that I think they were like brothers or something, and then I don't care what it was, but I think they were the original company initially, like one. But there's two restaurants called Costa Vida and Cafe Rio. For those in the U.S. or have been to the U.S., the closest analog is Chipotle or Bakia Grill, if you've heard of those restaurants. It's not really that, and it's not really fair to compare the two. They're kind of two different things, but it's a style of food we call fresh Mex in this area. And you go to them, so it's Costa Vida and Cafe Rio. And there's plenty of these places downtown, and they make a whole bunch of things, but they're best known for two different things. First is their salad, and it's their sweet pork salad. So you go up and you get to pick like which kind of beans and all the things that go in. They assemble it there in front of you. But you have a tortilla shell, and then you have a cilantro lime rice with black or pinto beans, and then on top of it they put a sweet pork barbacoa in there. I don't actually like the sweet. I like their savory meats, but a lot of people love that. And then they put on lettuce, and then they have this ranch, tomatillo ranch dressing that has jalapenos and other stuff. It's way good. So it's their sweet pork salad. And so that one, it all comes together and then you eat. It's really, really good and interesting. They also do something similar, but with a smothered burrito, which is a common Mexican dish, burrito mojado. But they do that as well. That's another one. They do that with the sweet pork or whatever meat. So highly recommend looking for one of those. They are, like I said, they're all over the place down here. Great food, and it's something really different. It is a local chain. It's all over the Mountain West in particular. So you'll see things in like Denver area, in Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, that kind of area. There's a bunch of them. There. So highly recommend that. And then the other one, which I mentioned, if any of you follow the CNCF blog posts on KubeCon, there's one we released a month or two ago. This is the new one that Orland's showing, that also has some really good info from Dan, who I've known for a while. But we also, they pulled a couple of the other ones. Another thing that is going to be very, very unique to here is going to one of the soda shops. So they call them dirty sodas here. But what it is you have, imagine like, it's kind of like a nice coffee shop, but with sodas instead of coffee. And so there's a couple big ones, Sodalicious, Fizz, and Sodalicious, Fizz, and Swig are the ones I think of most. There's more than that. And there's several of them all through the state and then in Salt Lake. But you go and you get a drink. They often have very tongue-in-cheek names. And then you can get things in them, like you get them dirty, which means you throw in cream into it, kind of like an Italian soda if you've had that before. So you, like, one of my favorites is I get Dr. Pepper with strawberry, pineapple, and then coconut cream. And it's quite good. But you can get all sorts of stuff. It's so worth going to. You just prepare for a sugar overload or get a diet one, which is fine too. It's what I often do, so I don't feel so guilty. And that's a very, very fun thing to do. It's very unique to this area. You can get all sorts of sugary treats and things there too. So those are the two, like, they're different, but they're like two, like, kind of, you should go check those out at least. We have a bunch of other local chains that are good that I can throw up when I do Sig Foodies. Yeah. But those are two that I would be sad if I didn't mention so people knew about them.
Nice. is there any of the places that you just shared with us, the nearby the Salt Palace, or
Yeah, most of them are close by. So right next to the Salt Palace is the City Creek Mall, and there's a big food court on the other side of that mall that you can get to. There's also restaurants throughout the thing, and I believe it's. I'm going to actually just double check right now. I believe it's Costa Vida on the other side that's there. But you have a whole bunch of them down there. If I look this up, I believe there's at least two nearby. Um, yeah, it's the one that's at the end of the mall, and then you can go the other direction towards another shopping area called the Gateway. So you basically have to go 2 blocks in either direction, and there's a Costa Vida there, and I think there's a Cafe Rio in there too. So you'll be able to find one pretty easy within 2 blocks of the actual Salt Palace.
nice, good. So we have around 60, 70 people, and you promised that you're gonna open the PR. So sorry, it's recorded.
I'll get to it. I already have it written. I just need to open a PR.
No, I think if you manage to get that PR on the day before and we merge it, we're fine. I mean, people won't be doing some crazy food adventure plans before that. So yeah. All right. So thank you for that. That's a very dear to me topic. So I want to really to cover it. Um, there will be few stuff happening during the week of KubeCon. Not many, but for example, I'm jumping to the next straight to the next topic. Like fun outside of KubeCon, which not related. Like for example, some basketball games, some music. Um, for example, me and my team, we were planning to hit Utah Jazz versus Dallas Mavericks on 40th in the evening. Still not sure if we have the tickets though. We'll see. But you mentioned something else. A movie music something. Avatar. The Last Airbender will
Yeah,
be.
there's a couple interesting things around. We do have, like you said, the Jazz playing. I think Utah's new hockey club might be playing if you're interested in hockey. The same week we have that week. I know because I was thinking about going, and I feel like most people in this field have watched this. They're doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, like all the like music from it at the Eccles Theater downtown, and so that's one that would be really interesting to go to as well, if you like those kind of things. I think the orchestra might be doing things where the Salt House is literally next door, like butts right up to the Abravanel Hall, which is the home of the Utah Symphony and Orchestra. If they have something going there, I think they had one thing going that week, but they're also really good if you like that kind of music. And then there are multiple music venues all over the place. Like actually, anywhere between Salt Lake and Provo, which is the next big city, about 45 minutes south, is actually pretty well known for a lot of music. A lot of different bands have formed there. You have like Imagine Dragons and Neon Trees, and those kind of people all kind of formed in that area. And so in the Salt Lake area, there is the venue, the depot, and the complex. There's a couple different shows that are going on that date. That are available if you're a big live music fan. One of them wasn't it a heavy metal band? It was one you knew, if I remember right, Orlin, when we were talking.
Yeah, there'll be Black Dahlia Murder is gonna.
Yeah.
They're gonna play there. Unfortunately, it's not on the right time. And another show that I really, really regret missing out is on the next day. It's on 16th of November. Joe Bonamassa is gonna play. Not sure where. We can check that, but he's one of the best blues players right now. So it's a pity I'm going to fly out on 15th, but yeah, that's it. I didn't know before that. Poor planning. That's it. That's why we're doing this session. For good planning. My thing was poor planning. If I knew I was gonna stay for a day just to listen to him. So those are the places. We're gonna list them later on into the live description thing on YouTube, for example. Right. So you said close by. There are a few venues, so people can check. I'm sorry. Okay, I think we kind of covered everything that we prepared. So I'm gonna ask if someone wants to ask some. We have a question. Also help and do you have outlets or branded discounts, malls or shops surrounding?
Yeah, we actually there are up in Park City. So speaking of day trips, um, we have uh, we have outlet malls that are out there just right off the freeway. So that's a we have a couple of those actually. That's probably the nearest one. The next nearest one is about 30 minutes south. It's literally right next to the Adobe office that's here in a city called Lehigh. And there's another big one down there. Um, for those who haven't been to like a Cabela's or something like that, or a Shields in the US, it's a distinctly American experience. I'll just say that. Those images you have of all of us like Americans like slinging around guns all the time. That's where that stereotype comes from. It's fun to go look at because they're these massive like outdoor stores, and they have like camping things and fishing things and hunting things and bows and arrows and like everything you can picture. It's like all under one roof. So those are also out there. That is a very distinctly American thing. It's not just a over here thing. It's an American thing. But yeah, that's also around.
Is any of this nearby, or you said like a 30 minutes drive or
They're all
something?
about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. Park City is a well-known city for skiing and other things. And you can get on I-80, which is just goes like right through Salt Lake City and go straight up, and you can get there really quick. So it's all connected pretty quickly to things up into the mountains.
Great. And for those of you who are like a snowboard head like me, I like give me a month more, and all the time I'm thinking about like snowboarding most of the time, kids and snowboarding. um, Evo shop is like 15 minutes walk west from the Salt Palace. So people who are interested in winter sports, they can visit that. It's not a discount shop or anything, but it's like everything in the one roof for everything's winter sports. So, any more
Now,
questions from the audience, or you want to share something else?
I'll share something while I know that sometimes on streams it can take a sec for people to get their thoughts
Yep.
together and out there. I know that a lot of people have asked about like what to do after, because Utah is very much well known for its national parks and other things. Um, Dan's guide that Orland linked earlier has a lot of really good options for local things. I have a few local ones as well. If you ever want to reach out on the CNCF Slack, I have a few local area things to do. If you're going to take the time to be here, though, I highly recommend trying to get down to at least one of the national parks. You can do Arches and Canyonlands because they're right next door to each other. And this time of year, there's less visitation because it's a little bit cooler, but it's not super cold yet. Though who knows what could happen between now and then. But honestly, a lot of those parks are very beautiful in the snow. I've gone down there when it's snowed, and it's just a little cold, but it's quite nice. And then you have things like Bryce Canyon, and then you have Zion National Park and Capitol Reef, and all of the like you could probably hit those three or a combination of those other three. So they call them the Mighty Five. Highly recommend going down there. There's also a bunch of other state parks and things you can go to that are really beautiful. Utah has a lot of unique scenery. So if you're any type of outdoors person and you have the extra time to like just take the weekend, it's very much worth going down there. From Salt Lake to Arches, for example, it's about 4-ish hours, maybe a little bit more than 4 hours, depending on traffic conditions. Which, if you're from Europe, might sound like a long time. If you're not, that's very short for us here. So it's not a long drive. That's easy. Like I've actually done in a single day going down and driving back. I don't normally do that, but it's not too bad to go down there and take a look.
Yeah, for me, 4 hours driving is like crossing the whole country and going either into Turkey or I don't know, so or definitely reaching some border. So yeah, and Yellowstone is kind of nearby. It's not exactly nearby, but
It's I think a 5 or 6 hour drive, but that's still relatively close. Like
yeah,
it's still I can get there in a day, um, from where
yeah.
I'm at. So also worth going to. You also in We also have outside in the other states. You have a couple in Colorado you can go to on the western side of it, and on the eastern side you have Great Basin National Park. So we have a bunch of national parks really close if you're interested in that kind of thing.
And the Salt Flats, how you can get to the Salt Flats from the
Salt Flats
city?
are a straight shot down westbound I-80 until you get to them. It's about, I want to say it's an hour, maybe 45 minutes, but they're very large. They're worth seeing. You can drive a car across them in certain areas and go really fast. That's where they do the speed tests. But it's just kind of cool to see. There'll be little pools of water and then the salt. It's a really interesting sight. But otherwise, it's fairly desolate out there.
Yeah, I mean, it just the nearest thing I think that is like considered to be seen, right?
You can get down to maybe even the salt. Like you can start seeing them earlier. You could go down to like Saltaire, where some of the lake is dried up, and see
Mhm.
something that's very similar. So there's
Nice,
multiple options there.
great. Okay. Once again, to the audience, that will be like online in a few seconds. But if someone wants to ask Taylor or me something else, now is the time. Until we wait, I have another foodie question. Is there any good barbecue in Salt Lake City? That
Um,
area is not like known for barbecuing in general, but still, I'm barbecue head, so
the only ones I know are further south. It's not going to be if you've ever had stuff, like in Austin or anything. Like we're not going to hold a candle to that here. Um, there are people who know how to do it, but like not a ton of restaurants. You can find
mm,
barbecue places and in a bunch of different things. They're okay. They're like decent, but they're not like good barbecue. So you won't find a lot of that here. Um,
and
there could be a restaurant I'm missing for sure, but like I can't think of one off the top of my head that's in the area.
yeah. By the way, we should add something to the sick foodies list for vegetarians and for people who don't eat meat for sure, because we primarily talk about meat. So
A lot of the restaurants I did give have vegetarian options. Some of them have vegan options as well, but I know there are plenty of vegan friendly places. I've had a few vegan friends who've been down there, but vegetarian, like even like that Costa Vida place I was talking about, their salad is still great with just the rice and beans and not meat. And then you have the dressing, like for example, that's
Mm,
there's multiple options. And then a lot of those other restaurants that I named do have vegetarian options.
nice. Right. I think we can close. We're almost to the hour, man. Time flies. Thank you once again for joining me on this session. It was super nice, super insightful. That will be online just in a minute. We're gonna update the sick foodies for those of you who are looking forward to the recommendations around food, and maybe we have to do some other sick like sick entertainment. I don't know, but cannot help do all right. But like all the stuff, I'll try to post the links into the description for like the venues and the events that are happening, like the basketball game and the music stuff. So thank you once again. I hope to see you in person, like stranger from the internet, to see you in person in Salt Lake City. And yeah, thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for having
Bye.
me and
Yeah,
see you all later.
yeah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.